from US, Professor Thomas TEPER and Mrs. Kimberly Armstrong. They cannot join our face-to-face presentation, but they prepare their presentation in video. Before their presentation, let me give you a little bit their background. Professor Thomas TEPER, he is a professor, associate university librarian from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And Ms. Kimberly Armstrong, she is the Deputy Director, Center for Library Initiative, Committee on Institutional Cooperation. And I'm not sure the video is ready, but we try to complete all the video presentation in 28 minutes. I think we will learn a lot from their presentation. Actually, they have their papers in our disk, and we can have a Q&A by ourselves, okay? After the Q&A. Okay, now let's have a presentation. Thank you.
Tom and I are happy to be here today to get a chance to talk with you. We're very sorry that we couldn't join you in person in Hong Kong, and we wish you all the best for a very successful conference. But thank you for joining us as we sit here in our offices in Champaign, Illinois. I'm going to talk a little bit at the beginning about the formation of the CIC Consortium, how we do our work, how we collaborate with our members, how we're organized and funded. And then Tom is going to take over and talk about his perspective from a member university and how the CIC impacts the work that they do locally. The CIC is a consortium that was founded in 1958. It's an academic consortium of the members of the Big Ten Athletic Conference plus the University of Chicago. For those of you who don't follow the Big Ten Athletic Conference in the United States, they currently have 12 members, and membership has been grown very slowly over the years. Most of the members, all of our members, are Research One institutions across 9 states in the Midwestern United States, plus adding the University of Chicago. We have 11 public universities and 2 private universities. Our work is to advance the academic missions of our universities and to leverage their expertise and their resources to create innovative programming that will allow them to accomplish things together that perhaps they could not do individually. We carry out our work not unlike many, many other consortia, many of you who are probably sitting in that room that work for consortia. We have targeted project partnerships that have very specific timelines, investments, and outcomes, something that's been identified by our senior stakeholders as an outcome they would like to have, and we put all of our energy and efforts into achieving these targeted projects, and we'll talk about some of those in a little bit as they relate to libraries. We also nurture an extensive community of peer networks that allow people to come together to talk about common issues and best practices and get advice, and really to build a network of trust and communication that knits together people who are across a large geographic area but who have common interests, who work at common scale, at common investment levels, and in common levels of complex organizations. And these communities of peers can be invaluable in carrying out the work of the CIC, but also in initiating projects that ultimately will bubble up to become some of these targeted project partnerships. Currently, the CIC's mission is to advance academic excellence through collaboration across our member universities. We are engaged in a strategic planning process right now, which we engage in every 3 years with our senior leadership. So by June, we will have a new mission and a new set of strategic directions that will be available to all of our members. We are currently an unincorporated voluntary association, and we have been since 1958 when we were formed. We have no bylaws, we have no operating plan. And we believe this has been one of the reasons that the CIC has been successful. It has required the staff here in Champaign, the Central CIC staff, to meet with our members, to plan with our stakeholders, to always seek their investment and their advice as we are planning for and executing projects and programs on their behalf. So that voluntary collaboration has been critical in order for us to stay successful with our members. We are currently in the process of transitioning to a 501c3. The reason we're doing this really is directly linked to streamlining efforts with regard to purchasing and contracts. It is the case right now that often when we are dealing with consequential contracts and licenses, we'll need to consult the university councils at 13-member universities, which is expensive, it's not efficient, and really not necessary, particularly to advance collaborative activity. And so we're hoping that this transition will not affect the way that we work and trust each other and engage with the CIC. We're not setting up a separate governing board. It will continue to be the same governing board, and we will still expect that the work that we do together will continue to be voluntary, and our member institutions will invest as they see value that will flow directly back to their institutions. Unlike other library consortia, we are funded and run and planned for by the chief academic officers at our member universities, often called provosts of the university. So they take care of the operational costs. And then the list of other stakeholders you see beneath, including the university librarians, each of those groups invests in the CIC in order to keep up a level of staffing to keep their programs going, but they also invest in projects and programs of particular interest to them. The Center for Library Initiatives was established in 1994. It was the result of a strategic planning process engaged in by our university librarians. The outcome really was that they believed that focus and directed management of our program was necessary in order to achieve their goal of having a single library resource across the CIC institutions that would be available to everyone, faculty, staff, and students, that would not require students or faculty to travel among the members in order to take advantage of resources, but that we could find a way to knit together to everyone's benefit, to the collective benefit, a single library, if you will. The CLI, the Center for Library Initiatives, is currently staffed by 3 librarians and an administrative assistant, all working in the central office in Champaign. One of the librarians is a 2-year project manager who's working specifically in targeted areas, which I'll mention below in some of our projects. Again, our operating budget is provided solely by the chief academic officers, and the university librarians then invest their money, their dollars, their staff time in specific projects and programs that have been planned for collectively. The CIC is a founding member of the HathiTrust Digital Library, housed at the University of Michigan and Indiana University. Currently, over 10 million volumes reside in the HathiTrust Digital Library, and all of our members are members of that. We are collectively a Google scanning partner. 9 of the CIC member libraries are currently and actively scanning with Google, and our contract with Google provides for scanning of up to 10 million volumes from our library collections. Our university librarians have invested in a shared print repository, which expects to ingest and secure 250,000 volumes of serials over the next 5 years, based at Indiana University. Our university librarians invest in a large-scale acquisitions program in which collection dollars are aggregated at the CIC to build a pool of money in which we can act collectively on behalf of the schools to acquire electronic resources. And then finally, we are also collectively working on a project to scan the entire corpus of U.S. federal government documents that ultimately will reside in HathiTrust and be available via the public domain. One of the biggest challenges we have at the CIC is how do we plan, how do we identify the projects and programs that will be most important and most impactful in our schools. Every day we have members contact us, talking together, thinking about creating projects and programs. So how do we know which ones are the best ones to put resources and energy behind? Several years ago, the staff engaged in a benchmarking exercise and training in which we identified these 5 questions, a set of stakeholder interviews that would help us untangle and identify and focus on the projects and programs that the university librarians would find the most valuable to come from the CIC. And this allows the university librarians to take into account programs and projects they want to achieve at their own member university, projects that they're involved with either other consortia or other library partners. So once a year, we speak to the university librarians and ask them these 5 questions that are both a mix of planning projects but also reporting, so that we're able to understand what kind of data the university librarians would find valuable in order to demonstrate that progress has been made on projects and that it is a wise use of their investment and resources. Every consortium, every group that works together always has a set of challenges, and I've listed some here. I'll talk through them, and then in the other column I've actually listed some of the solutions that we find have been very valuable in helping move along both the building of a collaborative network and bringing people together to contribute their time and talents to the work. Clearly, the individual institutional priorities at any given time can override anything that's going on collectively. Essentially, everyone in our libraries that's working on behalf of the CIC or contributing to a project or program is doing it voluntarily. They're all working full-time in those libraries and feel the pressures of timing and other demands in order to meet their own institutional priorities. And so we're always trying to balance how much we ask of them and allowing for them to have time and attention to what's happening at home. All of our projects work on a timeline, but it is the case that you can't always line up 13 libraries to do anything in the same kind of time frame. So we have to remain flexible in order for folks to invest in a project over time, maybe over a fiscal year, several fiscal years, to be flexible about how they pay for things, to be flexible when they join a project. Perhaps a project will start with 3 or 4 libraries and then scale ultimately as others find that the timing is more right for them to come in and join. As with every organization, we find challenges in communication. We have a communication staff member here at the CIC that specifically spends time trying to target and help us refine our message, to find more channels to reach out to our librarians and our other stakeholders. And we have a variety of technology-driven strategies in order to stay in communication with our members in a way that they understand how our work is impacting their work and vice versa. We also continually struggle with speed to action. Once something's decided on as a collective project in the CIC, once we know where the investment's coming, it is still a very difficult and time-consuming project to take anything and get 13 folks working together, working in the same time frame, working toward the same solution. My boss, the executive director of the CIC, likes to say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think every one of us remembers this and recognizes this and wrestles with this every day, as our schools would like to see us move more quickly, but building that kind of voluntary collaboration actually does take time. We're bringing new members into the CIC. This is something, we've had a quite stable membership through its history, through the Big Ten history in the CIC. But in the last 2 years, we will now have added 3 members to a 13-member consortium, and that's not insignificant. We have to help enculturate them into the work, into the landscape, into understanding and building trust with both the members and with the central staff. And we find that we also want to invite them to bring both their strengths to the table, show us where they can be leaders amongst their members, and also what are their pain points. Are there things we can help them address through collective opportunity and action that perhaps they hadn't had an opportunity to do before? And then finally, and Tom will talk about this more, all of our members, because they are large institutions, because many of them are the flagship institutions in their state, belong to multiple and overlapping consortia. And we walk a bit of a tightrope trying to make sure we don't overlap with that work. That would be redundant for us with a small staff. And that we're returning our own value to our members and not offering competing services with other consortia for whom those libraries have also fruitful and productive relationships. Some of the ways that we go about trying to get over some of these hurdles. We do believe, and the chief academic officers do believe, that a central staff is critical to achieving their goals and fulfilling the mission of the CIC. And we've grown deliberately. We don't have a large central staff. We really do it tied to the programs and projects that are identified. But we do think that relying solely on the voluntary labor in libraries or in other parts of the universities is not the most efficient way to get projects and programs accomplished. We believe in human networks, and so we continue, all of us, to travel, to bring people together, to go onto our member campuses, to meet people who are affected by the work, to gather their ideas, and we will continue to in as much as possible. That we just feel like that it's one of our values, and nothing replaces the opportunity to sit down and listen to and talk to a group of people who are your members. All of our goals and our strategic planning are tied to institutional objectives. So we go through an extensive process of reviewing those goals with our stakeholders so that they understand and we understand if we are misaligned in any way or if we really are affecting and targeting things that are actually going to be of real value to them locally. Otherwise, we know they will not be as invested in our success if we're not helping them realize some of their own local objectives. And finally, we do extensive benchmarking and reporting. We like to be transparent as much as possible and open about how we use the resources of our members in order to achieve goals. And we take a lot of feedback about it. We even work with our university librarians to identify what those benchmarks and reports are going to be. So, Tom?
Thank you, Tim. So, my name is Tom TEPER, and I'm the Associate University Librarian for Collections at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And as a founding member of the CIC and the location of its home offices, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign walks a bit of a tightrope with respect to its relationship with the CIC. Clearly, we maintain a deeply vested interest in the success of the CIC's programs. We also believe that the CIC is a mechanism by which we can accomplish locally held and developed goals. However, our relationship with the CIC and its the location of its offices in our town makes individuals on our campus and in our library particularly sensitive to being perceived as domineering or overly pushy in discussions or initiatives. That desire to support the CIC's Center for Library Initiatives and not create the perception of trying to hijack the agenda is really aided by the organization's overall scope and its long-standing record of success. Over 50 years, the CIC has evolved from being a regional consortia of academic institutions to really at this point being an organization in many respects that is super-regional, stretching from the East Coast far into the central United States. The CIC's network of universities is, extensive and powerful. And the CIC itself serves programs that are much larger than just those supported by the libraries. Its member institutions bring in about $8.4 billion in sponsored research annually. And when compared to the Ivy League or the University of California, what the CIC member institutions do is actually quite significant and transformative in terms of the types of research that are being done. Now, the needs of the libraries, while we would like to think they are paramount to the CIC, really always have to be taken within the context of this much larger academic enterprise. So, from the perspective of being a consortial member that is served by the Center for Library Initiatives, the advantages of working within the CIC are great. The Center for Library Initiatives reports that the cooperative purchasing program save its members $3 million annually. And whatever slice of that we may see or realize individually as an institution in savings is money that we can use to acquire deeper collections, to support other programs that the library supports. So really, that is a direct benefit to our institution. In recent years, really what we have seen become the most rapidly growing aspect, the most rapidly growing advantage for us has been the CIC's ability to mobilize resources across the institutions for collective action. The Google digitization effort has allowed us to digitize millions of volumes across the institution and deliver them to all of our members, but also, in the case of public domain material, to the world at large. The HTTP really is an outgrowth of a CIC-led initiative to determine how we were going to store and deliver those millions of volumes to our members, how we were going to make a research corpus available for text analysis, and from that initial seed grew the HTTP, which now has members around the world. Currently, the CIC is engaged in developing a cooperative storage program for duplicate journal literature. And that is enabling us to focus locally on deduplication efforts that, conservatively, I would estimate from the first phase of that program is going to enable the University of Illinois to realize about 0.4 of a kilometer of savings with respect to shelf availability. If we do deduplicate even half of what is purported to be available from Elsevier, the first phase of this, we'll save about 0.4 of a kilometer in shelving. That in itself is fairly significant. And when you're looking at a resource environment in which we aren't going to necessarily have the resources to just keep building additional storage facilities, using the space that we have more wisely is a key component of how we're going to continue to support the research needs of our faculty and students locally and throughout the consortium in the coming years. The CIC also is engaged in extensive resource sharing and currently engaged in programs to attempt to improve the resource sharing network that it has. And then lastly, professional development is a substantial benefit that we have. Every year the CIC holds a conference to really explore new and emerging trends in librarianship, and its members are brought together to learn about and discuss various issues. But professional development really extends beyond that. A large part of the success of the organization is based upon trust and based upon the relationships that have been built over the years. And the CIC is actively engaged in building networks of communication. And those networks help build that trust. And those networks, as we bring new librarians into the fold, really help develop them professionally and enable them to contribute to the success of the organization. Now, that said, there are tensions in any relationship of this nature. I think perhaps the most important one that we need to think about is the fact that the Center for Library Initiatives is not the CIC. The Center for Library Initiatives is an office within the CIC, an organization that reports to the chief academic officers, the provosts, on each of the member campuses. The individuals within the member libraries sometimes forget that the CIC does not work for us. Indeed, our desire to expedite communication sometimes leads members to refer to the CLI as the CIC. It's a mistake that actually elevates the importance of the libraries and diminishes the broader impact of the CIC across the member institutions. And it's a mistake that sometimes leads our members to be frustrated because, as the next challenge we see is that the CIC's goals are not always those of the individual members. As Kim noted earlier, member libraries have to see a level of autonomy when they're working collectively within a consortium. And this can be a point of frustration for individual member institutions or individual employees of those libraries, especially when they do not understand why certain issues that they believe are critically important are not given the attention that they deserve. The CIC actively works to ensure that the activities undertaken by the Center for Library Initiatives serve both individual and collective interests. And this is largely accomplished by having active, open dialogues at many levels throughout the member institutions. But that also requires that the member institutions and the individuals working in them are understanding of the fact that we're working toward a collective benefit, not just to realize the goals of one member institution. And one of the other challenges that we face is that we have overlapping consortia. The consortia that have developed in the United States have emerged in a fairly haphazard manner. Some follow tight geographic bounds, like states. Some represent types of institutions. Some are more regionally focused. And some really have a political connection. The University of California system is both a geographic and a political entity in many respects. And consequently, very few institutions in the United States find themselves represented by only one consortium. In the case of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, we are represented by the CIC, but also by the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Illinois, known as CARLI, the Center for Research Libraries, the Association of Research Libraries, the multi-campus entity that is our university system, and a number of other consortial projects, programs, and groups. And as a result, there are sometimes overlapping and competing interests among these groups. And this occasionally causes tensions within member libraries. In the end, what we are trying to do, what the member libraries are trying to do, is really determine what is in the best interests of their institution. And sometimes that means that we make decisions that align ourselves with the CIC, and sometimes we make decisions that, frankly, in the end, aren't necessarily in keeping with the direction the CIC wants to go. And we both, as a consortia and as a member institution, have to be able to reconcile ourselves to those tensions. And the last tension that we have is really one of building trust. Strong relationships require building trust. Every time there is a personnel change within the Center for Library Initiatives, there is a new opportunity for us to build a new trust relationship. Every time there's a personnel change at one of our member libraries, there is a new opportunity for us to enhance that trust relationship. Or, frankly, to erode that trust relationship. And if you can imagine a consortium of 13 libraries, you have 13 deans, 13 collection heads, 13 IT heads, etc., etc., etc. So every time there's a personnel change, there's an opportunity for one of us to drop the ball. And we have to be able to work together to communicate openly, communicate effectively, and frankly, make sure that we can sustain what has been a very long-standing trust relationship by that open and honest communication. Now, in conclusion, the CIC has a long track record of success, over 50 years of collaborative development. The Center for Library Initiatives has been around since 1994. How has the CIC and the Center for Library Initiatives been able to maintain this track record of success? Well, the CIC has a mission, and the activities of its offices align with that mission. That said, the CIC is also a fairly flexible organization that seeks to incorporate good ideas from wherever they might come. With an organization that runs from provosts down to first-year librarians and relatively early career faculty members, it's possible that good ideas are going to come from all kinds of places. And the CIC really works very aggressively to try and incorporate those good ideas from wherever they might come, as long as they fit within that broader mission that they have. And they do this by not alienating their various constituents, by communicating openly with them, and by successfully completing many objectives. By doing all of this, the CIC has actually built a very vast reservoir of trust among its members. And this trust is really the strongest bond between many of the individuals within the organization. It allows us to take risks, to have faith in an organization that really has no solid political or social imperative beyond serving the best interests of its member institutions. And it's allowed this organization to be wildly successful in the last several decades. So, with that, I'd like to conclude this presentation. Thank you for your time and attention, and frankly for accommodating our need to present this presentation remotely. Thank you.
Actually, we have a very successful presentation via technology. I think CUHK staff work very hard to make this very smoothly. And we can find technology help us a lot, so we can reduce a lot of travel times. And I know